Hi everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. Thanks for coming by today. And so last week, I didn't have a video last week. I was at the doll show here in Yamhill, well I guess it's Polk County Fairgrounds. And it was a really good day. I got to see some of you there, so that was fun. Had a good day in sales, so yeah, it was a good day, but it prevented me from doing some other things because I was at the doll show. So today we're going to work on the silk shirt for the Bobobie Apollo. So the last video we made the jacket, so his jacket's on here, and this isn't the Bobobie Apollo head. This is a Doll Family H Zinzu, I don't know. Anyway, and I just wanted to see if it would fit this body, so that's who's on this body right now. The resin is a little bit pinker than the Bobobie Apollo. It has a little bit more of a yellow tinge. I don't know if that's because it's kind of mellowed out or if it was actually just one of their like normal yellow tones. I don't know. I bought him secondhand, so I'm not sure. But it doesn't look too bad when he's got clothes and stuff on. You only see a little bit, you know, of his neck. So we're going to work on his shirt. There we go. So let's take the jacket off. And I did notice in doing the jacket, the sleeves are a little narrow. So it's a little bit snug to pull down over his thumbs, which is always exciting. We'll take the jacket off. So again, on the jacket, this fabric it's so fragile. It's almost like sewing aluminum foil version of fabric. And so if you have a fabric that's real delicate like this, just use some of the fusible interfacing where you iron it on, not with a real hot iron because you could melt the fabric. And use some of that to kind of hold it in place so it doesn't fray as bad, and then when the needles perforate the fabric it doesn't run quite so bad. And even on where the seams are, and even in places where it's not really the seam, the fibers want to unravel. So yeah, so I'll probably redo this jacket just because this is kind of frightening, but sometimes I sell the prototypes. I did the gold jacket and sold that, but I list it, you know, as a prototype so people know ahead of time. It's not the perfect version yet, but I just love how the back turned out with the black and the silver. I don't know. So anyway, now we'll go on to the shirt. This is what we're going to make today. It's a narrow sleeved shirt. I didn't put any buttons on the front because I wanted it to just be the color underneath the jacket. The collar was a little short, so if you're going to put this together, the pattern's already on the website. You might want to lengthen that collar if you want them to come in further so that they'll meet a little bit better. I noticed this collar was a little short. Also, this shirt has, and it's kind of wrinkled from being in under the jacket, has no yoke. It's just a simple straight back shirt. So it's very basic, and that's what we're going to put together today. So, but I will say that I love sewing real silk. If you can get to a fabric store and can grab a 1/4 yard and get real silk, it sews so much nicer than some of the polyester blends. It doesn't fray or ravel that much. It has a few broad strands that you might pull out, but like I say, I had one that I did out of this fabric, and I had to take the collar off and on like 3 times because it just didn't want to line up right, and it never frayed. I just take it off, put it on, take it off, put it on, and it was fine. So real silk, you get what you pay for. If it's real silk, you'll love sewing with it. So anyway, we're going to make this today. Also, before we change up the machine and start sewing, I went to Walmart and I found just in their salvage bin some cotton fabrics, and this one is a little shimmery polyester blend of a remnant, but 77 cents. What is this one? $1.16, $1.24. So if you're in places that sell fabric, check out those bargain bins, check out those remnants, because with doll clothing you don't need a lot. If you're doing, you know, shirts, pants, you need more length because they're long, especially for a 3rd scale BJD. But this one, even, I think it is, let's see if it tells, it's 44 inches wide and 30 inches long. So it's going to be plenty for, you know, cotton black pants or whatever. So check out those remnants. Also, another quick thing, if you go to some of the little thrift stores or Dollar Tree or Country Dollars or whatever the little bargain store might be, always take time to look in the tool section, because like in our Dollar Tree I found a little package over by the tools, and it's 4 different sets of tweezers. I don't know if you can see those against my hand even. Oh, here, I'll use my notebook. But I love using tweezers when I'm sewing, just to grab threads, to reach through and pull through, or to get a hold of little tiny snags. But here's 4 different types, and it was $1. And so they're really good sewing tools. Also, for some of these big doll stands, this has a bolt that you need to tighten and loosen to raise. Get a pair of pliers, and that way you can maneuver those, because for some of these types of things you don't need heavy duty tools. You just need something that'll grip better than your fingers. So get a pair of pliers. You know, just look in those bargain places, because you never know what you're going to find and what will work in the dolly world. So yeah, with that said, we'll have no more ado. We'll go ahead and switch up everything and put together this silk shirt. So I will see you when I switch up the camera. The steps for the shirt are much the same as the jacket. So I've gotten a bunch of the prep work done. I sewed the front to the back at the shoulders and just pressed open the seams. On the facing, I sewed the shoulders together, pressed open the seams, and then serged around the outside edge of the facing. On the collar, I sewed it together, then trimmed around the sides and the top, turned it right side out, stay stitched the bottom, and notched the center. And then on the sleeves, because these sleeves are going to have a little bit different closure rather than a cuff, I went ahead and I finished the edges at the hem and on both sides, and I hemmed it 1/4 inch, because when I sew this together, when I put the side seams together, I'm not going to start at the actual hem of the sleeve. Instead, I'm going to start about 1.5 inches down. So this will be an open slit here, and then once it's sewn, the seam allowance will turn out, but then I'm just going to have a snap closure so that that will just have a snap there, and I will have it hidden so that it won't actually show. So once that'll be turned, here we go, and it'll just close like that. Because the ball jointed hands are often kind of large, I want to have enough room that those hands can go through the end of the sleeve without having to take off the hands. So that's why I'm not going to sew right all the way to the edge, because that opening might be too small for the hands. So that's what I'm going to do on the sleeves. Also, I basted across the top edge so that I can slightly pull that with a little bit of gather and ease that into the armhole. So that's kind of what I do to get everything ready. The sleeves are ready. Also, this fabric is silk. So one thing that you'll probably find, like the silver stuff I used for the jacket was falling apart, and it was very frustrating. I don't know why I didn't think to put the fusible facing on it, but with silk, I've worked with this before, and I had a collar that I had to actually take out like 3 times. I could not get it centered, don't know why, but it always was just enough off that I didn't like it. But I took it out like 3 times and never had any problem with the fabric fraying and coming apart. There's a little bit of fray, but it holds together really nice. So if you can afford real silk, it's worth it. It just is so nice to use when you're sewing. So that's what we've done so far. The next step, now that the shoulders are put together, will of course be to stay stitch around the neck edge of both the shirt and the facing, and then we'll put the collar in by notching to the stay stitching. Then the collar will be placed between the right sides of the fabric and the right sides of the facing and pinned into place, and then that'll be notched. It'll be pulled like this when it goes through the machine. So I will stay stitch around those and notch, pin that collar in, and then we'll go ahead and sew it in. So there we go. It's kind of hard to see. My platform here is dark, so it's hard to see the black against it, but I'll stay stitch, here we go, around the neck edge, and then the collar will be started at the center back, so I'll probably notch the center back here as well as on the facing, just so I can match those notches all up and start pinning there. And then I will work from the center out to the outer edges. Now, because this is a shirt, I don't want a lot of excess sticking out here, so there's only going to be a little bit. The collar will go almost to the end of the neckline, because you don't want a big lapel on a shirt. So anyway, there we go. We'll get that stay stitch pinned in and move on to our next step. So now the collar is pinned in between the shirt and the facing, and for some reason this pattern did have more lapel than I wanted, so I'll see if I just had too much overlap planned on it, and then I can just overlap that when I put on the snaps and buttons, or if my collar is actually too short. But I don't know, I'll just go ahead and sew it together and see what happens. So now we're going to start at the hemline of one side, and we're going to sew from the hem up the front to the neck edge. And I have a lot of static in my thread today. It's kind of sticking to everything. And when I get up to the neck edge, I'm going to sew to where the seam allowance would be, and pivot. I'll take out the pin, and now I will go around, and I'm going again, just like on the jacket, to be taking that shoulder seam and kind of all those little puckers, that because we're going around a curve, and I'm going to pull them away from the needle so that I don't have any pleats as I go around the neck edge. Just kind of pulling them down and away so the fabric doesn't cross itself and cause unwanted pleats there. And sorry, it's black fabric. That really doesn't help very much, does it? Okay. And when I get to about a seam allowance away from the front edge, I'm going to pivot again, take that top pin out of the fabric, and come down this side. And there is some fraying, but it's not too horrible. Nothing like that silver stuff. Okay. So now, once again, we'll take out the pins. And there's some pretty strong fibers on there, so I'll probably go ahead and serge on the fronts there. But before I trim anything, I'm going to pull this right side out and just check around that collar to make sure there's no pleats on the shirt. Okay, that side looks good. And this side looks good. So no pleats, which means I can go ahead and trim those corners. That will help it when I turn it right side out. But first I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to serge down these front edges just to prevent that from fraying into my seam, because it's not horrible, but they're pretty strong fibers. So I'm going to go ahead and serge that, and then I'll turn it right side out. So now that the collar is in, you can see it standing up here. Then the next step is going to be placing the sleeves into the shirt. So now with the right sides together, I'm going to be pinning from the outside edges towards the center of the shoulder. So I pick up the shirt and start pinning on this edge, if I can get my threads out of the way. I do a couple pins on this side where that shoulder, or the inside, the shoulder part matches the inside of the arm. And then I do a couple pins here. Then I'll bring this to this side, do a couple pins on this one, and then work towards the center. So here I'll probably speed up the camera to make that look a little faster, but that way you can see it done. So now that's ready to sew along that shoulder edge around the armhole and the shoulder, and then once that's sewn, we turn it and like I say, instead of starting at the wrist, when I sew down the sleeve and the side seam, I'm going to leave about 1.5 inches open, and then I'll sew back tack here and then sew the side seam. Now we'll go ahead and put this in the machine. And I'm putting the sleeve on the bottom with the shirt part on the top, just so I can double check that as I sew, so I don't get any pleats in my shirt. And just like I did on the jacket, I'm continually pulling fabric away from the needle. Because though we're kind of pulling it straight, we are actually going around curves that are kind of curved in the opposite direction of each other. The sleeve goes one way and the shirt part goes another. But we're kind of fooling the machine into thinking that we're sewing a straight line. As you can see, all these threads keep wanting to stick to me today. So now I will turn it right side out, double check around the sleeve and around the shirt, make sure there's no pleats. Alright, so we're good to go. Now I will do the same process on the other sleeve. Oh, and I will serge this just so that all those raw edges will be nice and finished. So now the sleeves are in, and the next step is going to be to turn the shirt inside out. There we go. know it's hard to see with all this black. But I'm going to line up the edges of the sleeve hem, and about 1.5 inches down, I'm going to start back tack. I'm going to sew down the sleeve to the underarm, and then I'm going to come down the side on each side of the shirt, and then I will serge the edges and hem it, and the shirt will be ready for snaps and buttons. So yeah, and I'll probably serge this edge just from like where it connects here and across this underarm sleeve where the sleeve connects to the shirt, just because I've got lots of loose threads there. So I'll serge that and make it all nice and finished too. But so yeah, so that's all I need to do is to finish the underarms and the sides, and then go ahead and hem. And the sides have a little bit of a curvature, so I was looking at it. I'm not going to stop and do all that. I'm just going to come straight down, but then when I hem it, it'll kind of slightly go up there. But that's what I'm going to do for the finishing of the shirt. So here's the finished shirt, and I'm not sure yet. I'll have to put it on the doll to see if the collar needs to be lengthened, or if I just need to overlap that a little bit more. But it seems like I've got too much from the edge of the collar to the edge of the shirt. I would rather it be about no more than, well, 1/8 of an inch. So this is more than I want. So I'm not sure if I need to overlap that and just have more of an overlap on that, or if the collar indeed needs to be lengthened. So anyway, I'm going to experiment with that and see what I like, and then I'll go ahead and put the buttons on the shirt. If the shirt is open, it's going to have, the lapel will look fine, but it wasn't really supposed to be that kind of a shirt, so we'll have to kind of play with it and see. But anyway, there's the finished shirt. Like I say, it's a very simple one. There's no yoke in the back. It's just the back of the shirt is plain, and because it's going to go underneath that jacket anyway. So yeah, so I'll put the snaps on the sleeves, some snaps on the front, and kind of play with the collar, see how that ends up, and then I'll see you when we try it on the doll. Okay, and here we go. Here's his shirt all done and on. I kind of untucked so you could see where the length falls on him. It is a very narrow shirt, but that's what I designed. That's what I wanted, just because I wanted it to be a very nice snug fit to go underneath a smaller cut jacket. So this is what it looks like when it's all done. Like I say, I did not put in any buttons or snaps, or I did the snaps, no buttons on the outside, no pocket, and the sleeves do not have cuffs, but I did leave them open so that it's easier to get around his hand, and then you just snip that back together with a snap and it closes it, so he has a nice closed sleeve. If you have a doll that's a little bit longer, you can always add a little bit more length to those arms or length here, and adjust the pattern as you need to. But for a Bobobie Apollo, there we go. That's how it fits him, and I hope that was helpful. So I'll see you next time. Have fun sewing, and have a great day.